Hi, I'm Howard Chui for Howard Forums, and today we're going to take a look at the Sony Xperia ZL. It's a good looking phone. The back is curved with an interesting texture. It makes it easier to hold. Check it out, the power button is located halfway down the right side. It's a strange place to put the power button, but it actually makes a lot of sense. When you hold the ZL with one hand, the power button rests right where your thumb is. Next to the power button, hidden under the panel, is an infrared blaster, which you can use to control your TV and home theater. On the back is a 13 megapixel camera, which you can launch quickly by using the camera shutter button. The micro SD and micro SIM card slots are located behind this cover. The micro SD can accommodate 64 gigabyte cards just fine. While the black ZL is a pretty sharp looking phone, I'm a little disappointed that Sony didn't bring the white version. The display measures 5 inches and has a resolution of 1920 by 1080. That's the same res you get in a big screen TV. Instead of physical buttons, there are on-screen ones. It really helps make the ZL more compact. Under the hood is a quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor clocked at 1.5 GHz with 2 GB of RAM. You get Jelly Bean, Android 4.1, with Sony's user interface on top. Unlike its competitors, Sony has kept the customizations pretty light. To me, the biggest improvement they've made are small apps. When you use the task switcher, you have the option to launch them. Some of these apps, like this useful notepad, stay on top of your other windows. There are also a bunch of other small apps which you can download from Google Play. You get a built-in remote control. Unlike the HTC One and Samsung Galaxy S4's remote control software, the Sony's is much more practical. It's a remote control and nothing more. It's able to do stuff like learn codes, and it even has a macro feature. You can set up, for example, you can set up a macro to automatically turn on all your devices. That sort of thing. I really like Sony's software. Sometimes less is more. I was also impressed with the remote's range. In my house, I can only get about 25 feet away from the TV, but even at that distance, the ZL's remote worked just fine. When Sony demoed the ZL to me, they really emphasized its ability to send music to compatible DLNA devices. This capability isn't unique to the ZL, but Sony has tried to make it easier. So for example, in the Walkman app, that's what they call their music player, there's a throw option right there to throw it to a DLNA device. It's not buried under layers of menus like it is on some other phones. Now the other area that Sony is emphasizing is the camera. Apparently it has the same software that you find on Sony's higher-end point-and-shoot cameras. What it does is it analyzes what's going on in the frame and it changes the shooting mode based on it. So when I move my hand quickly, it puts it into sport mode. That will raise the ISO, speed up the shutter speed so that you can do a better job of freezing action. If I move close to it, it will switch it to macro mode. If we turn the lights off, it'll switch to night mode, that sort of thing. The camera also has a really amazing burst mode. Check it out. In this mode, it's able to shoot at 10 frames per second, pretty much for as long as you hold the shutter down. So you see, look right there, I just shot 60 frames and it's still going up. It's pretty amazing. Now another really cool feature is HDR video. When you're shooting video, and you have the HDR feature turned on, the ZL will record even frames, it'll overexpose them, and odd frames will be underexposed. Then it'll average them, and it increases the video's dynamic range. It really helps if you're shooting someone against a really bright background, or if it's nighttime, it helps to reveal more detail inside shadows. It's like a feature that doesn't cost anything to use. It doesn't reduce your video quality. There's really no reason to not use it. As I mentioned before, the ZL is powered by a quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor. All it means is it's pretty fast, 4 cores, 1.5 GHz, 2 gigs of RAM. But there are 3 reasons why it won't feel 4 times faster than a single core phone. First off, some of the extra performance is eaten up by the high resolution screen. You think about it, 1920 by 1080, that's actually higher resolution than many PCs. And the PCs have faster processors. Second reason is because it's hard for app writers to write apps that utilize all 4 cores equally. From what I've seen, most apps use 1 core just fine. Some of them use 2. It's very rare to see one that uses more than 2 most of the time. And the last reason why it won't seem 4 times faster is because app writers need to write their apps for the lowest common denominator. So even though this is a quad-core monster with 2 gigs of RAM, they also need to write, their apps also have to run on some people who have a single-core phone with only half a gig of RAM. Anyways, the bottom line, the ZL, it feels really fast and it's snappy. The screen is insanely sharp and it works really well outdoors. It's fast, battery life seems good. And between the Galaxy S4 and the HTC One, the ZL actually feels the most compact. You can't really see it here, but it fits the nicest in my hand, I think. The back, the textured back also makes it easier to hold. I think the S4 is a bit, or actually, well, the One is a bit slippery, and the S4 is even more slippery. Plus, it's a little too thin, so it's easy to drop. The camera button is really handy. I love being able to use it to launch the camera. Plus it's useful when you're using the burst mode because it allows you to concentrate on holding the camera steady instead of, holding it like this. Well, the camera software is pretty decent. The camera itself isn't that great. Sony has sacrificed a lot to put a 13 megapixel camera into the ZL. It takes really noisy pictures. They're actually noisier than the Galaxy S4's 13 megapixel camera. The software is intelligent enough that you get lots of usable pictures from it, but even so, the noise gets kind of annoying after a while. Sony likes to play up the fact that media is part of their DNA, so I'm puzzled as to why the ZL doesn't support more codecs for video playback. It doesn't really play back. It doesn't play back a lot of the videos in my collection. While it is the nicest to hold, the plastic on the back feels a little thin. I wouldn't say it feels cheap, but I do wish it was a little more solid. You can see it when I press in. Also, as sharp as the screen is, I'm very annoyed that it turns white when you don't view it straight on. It's really bad when you're trying to share something with someone. If you're an iPhone user and own a lot of iPhone apps, then I say stay put. The iPhone 5 still runs apps really well, and it's an excellent all-around phone. The HTC One has a better screen. It's also slightly faster, and even though it has a lower resolution camera, the camera's performance is much greater than the ZL. Of course, the ZL has a bigger battery, a micro SD, plus it's a little easier to hold. I think the HTC One is a better phone overall, but as of right now, on Bell, it costs an extra $50. Is it $50 better? Actually, I think it is, but if you're not an expert user, you may not appreciate the differences between the two phones, and if that's the case, I say pocket the $50. Indoors, I'd say the GS4 screen is better, but outdoors in bright sunlight, the ZL wins easily. Spec-wise, the GS4 has a little bit more of everything. It's slightly faster, though you probably won't notice unless you have them side by side. It's not the sort of thing that you'd notice. The GS4 also has a slightly better battery, and you can actually remove it, although some of the extra capacity can be eaten up by the GS4's power-sucking Super AMOLED display. Overall, the Xperia ZL is a really great phone. I give it a very solid 8.5 Howies out of 10. I'm Howard Choi for Howard Forums. That's my Sony Xperia ZL review. Make sure you check out the full review at howardforums.com. Thanks for watching.